Hi, everyone. LT and I are excited to have on our show Athena Finger, the granddaughter of Bill Finger, who is the co-creator of Batman. Athena and Bill are the subject of the documentary on Hulu called Batman and Bill, and it tells the story of Athena's fight to get her grandfather credit for his part of the creation of the Dark Knight that he was denied for so long.
So join us as we discuss her story and basically how her grandfather changed a lot of people's lives.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode, a very special episode of World's Finest. I'm your host, Lee, and as always, I have my buddy here, LT, with me. But guys, what's up, LT? How are you, sir?
How you doing,
Doing great. But as I said, this is a very special episode. Not only do we have Izzy, the CEO of the CCG, the Comic Collectors Guild, here with us. Izzy, how are you today, sir?
Hey, Lee, how are you?
I'm great, man. Thank you for joining us on this fantastic episode. Guys, we are very fortunate to have one Athena Finger here with us today. She is, as you guys know, if you're a fan of comic books and if you're a fan of comic books and you're a fan of Batman, she is the granddaughter of the creator of Batman, one of the creators of Batman, Bill Finger. Athena, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. So we've been so excited, especially since, when Izzy first brought this to our attention that we were going to have you on the show. So we definitely appreciate you taking some time. Guys, for those of you who might not know, as I just insinuated, Athena Finger is the granddaughter of Bill Finger. He is the co-creator of Batman. And Batman, I don't think any of us would be here right now, or at least talking about, we might be here as humans, but not be here and in love with these characters as we are without Batman. I know for me,
exactly.
Yeah, he was the gateway into this world of comics for me. And so for that, I owe your grandfather a great deal of gratitude.
Amen.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes, so thank you again. If you haven't seen Batman and Bill, it's a documentary on Hulu, which I recently just watched. And gosh, it's a great documentary. It's almost like a horror story, though. I guess from your point of view, you know what I mean. But it ends with a happy note. So
it does, and
it does fantastic.
That's kind of the surprise ending.
Yeah,
it does. It does. Athena, before we get into anything, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind?
Sure. I'm actually in a very good time in my life since I've been able to get this resolved. I've gotten back into my own art. I'm a painter myself. I taught math for the last 10 years of my life. So I have a normal life. But I get to do fun things like this, talk with all of you, and I go to conventions and I do panels and I tell Bill's story and I talk about Batman history in general if people aren't aware of the true history. So, I keep myself busy.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that's great. LT, I know you had the first question. Why don't you kick it off?
Well, when you were first approached by the director of the documentary, was this something that you felt like was like gonna be like something big? I mean, someone else's interest in this crusade to get your grandfather noticed. Did you have any inkling of how big this was going to be?
Well, the way I actually came into the project was through Mark Tyler Nobleman, who's the gentleman who wrote the book about Bill.
Right.
And he had already spoken with the director and wanted to bring me in on the project. And I was like, of course, I mean, this is part of history. The culture is wanting the truth of the characters that they love. So that's how I came into it. It was very long. It took a long time for it to be made because going through the actual case with DC Warner Brothers kind of had to be quiet. So there was really not much going on during that time other than what was behind the closed doors. So we had to reapproach. They pitched it around, so that kind of played a role in that whole thing. So once I heard the kind of people that they were pitching the idea to is when I kind of realized how large it was going to be and what, you know, it's not just a specific demographic, it's now going to be worldwide. And, you know, the timing of it coming out was after we had already gotten him credit and we got to see the resolutions. So it really kind of came in full package, and then people really, not just comic fans, but people in general who like a good story, were really intrigued and surprised, and then, you know, celebrated. You know, you go through all of the emotions through it. So that was pretty amazing. I've had people who have seen it and then reach out to me and say, listen, I don't like comics, I don't watch comic movies, I don't read comics, I don't, you know, nothing with the genre whatsoever, but your story is amazing. Because it is a human story, and it's not something that just only happened to Bill or Jack Kirby or the many people in just this one particular industry. It's happened to a lot of people in all industries. So it really, it reached a lot of people I didn't expect.
That's good. I mean, it's probably the most iconic character in the comic book industry. I mean, you see the bat symbol and almost every part of the world, people know who it is. So, I mean, it's went worldwide.
I mean,
yeah, it's right up there with Coca-Cola. I mean, you might not read a comic in your life, but you see the bat symbol and you know it's Batman.
You know exactly what it is.
Right down to the history of the character, you know who that is. It's just instilled in everyone's mind and brain how big this character is.
So growing up, Athena, were you fully aware? I mean, I did watch the documentary, so I know I saw the quick animation of how you wrote the report as a child. So, you know, about your grandfather. How old were you when you realized how important, I mean, our grandparents are always important to us no matter what, but how important he really was to the comic world and the creation of Batman? Was it something that came later on, or?
Well, I mean, my father made it important to make sure that we knew how important it was.
Right.
So we always were aware that he did this amazing thing for the industry, because it wasn't just Batman. I mean, he came up with the original Green Lantern and wrote for, you know, Superman. He wrote for Timely, which is now Marvel. He wrote for a lot of the comic industry that were there of the time. So he was important in the fact that he was there at the beginning and then started to build what we know now. Even when my father was still alive, what was going on in the, you know, with comics then, I mean, it was just booming and growing and continuing to grow. And he saw how important it was because he was there through the growth of what my grandfather contributed to the industry, and knew that he wasn't getting the notoriety that he deserved. So he made sure that we understood how important it was. So then, you know, growing up with that, I'm a child, I don't know what to do about it, but you always know that they're always trying to do something to make it correct. So when my father passed away when I was 15, I was still a kid, not really knowing what to do. So, you know, knowing that even now, even then, you know, after the 89 movie and even with the Batman Returns and everything, I knew how massive it was because I saw that explosion at that time. And I was a teenager at the time still. So I was at that demographic that was all geared towards. Right. So when it fell upon me, it was just so massive. I really had no idea what to do with it, but I knew that it was something that needed to be resolved. Just, I didn't know what to do with it. I was discouraged from doing anything, money, time, you know.
Yeah.
of things that
It
we
would have been a huge
don't
undertaking.
necessarily have an abundance of.
Right.
Well, I mean,
And timing plays a lot into how this whole thing came about and was resolved. So
not just he didn't just your grandfather didn't just create Batman. I mean, if I'm correct, he's created many of the villains.
oh yes, most of
Many of the villains. He's created the Batcave, the Batmobile. I mean,
Joker,
he
Penguin,
inspired
Riddler.
almost everything.
Robin.
Yeah.
yes. Well, again, he was the writer, and people think, oh, Batman, he must have been the artist. No, he was the writer, and the writer was so important.
Oh yeah.
Tell the stories. It's one thing to visually see the stories, but to actually tell the story.
Yeah.
And the way that Bill wrote was that he dictated to the artist what he wanted to see in the panels. So
Right.
visually, he was seeing it while he was writing the script for them to do, and he would leave notes for them and say, hey, this is what should be happening here. And here's some reference art or photographs or ideas and things that he wanted the story to incorporate visually.
Right.
So I mean, he was very forward thinking with his writing.
Well, I think that you brought up a good point. He definitely was, and I was going to say that Izzy too, that he created not just Batman, but the world of Batman, Bruce Wayne, and everybody, everything that we know right now, pretty much he created. But
it was a blank canvas for him. He had the freedom to create a whole world and
right,
because it hadn't already been established.
Yeah. There was one thing they mentioned too during the documentary I watched about how he was responsible for a lot of the oversized keyboard, whenever they oversized keyboards or typewriters or what have you. And I think that lends itself to the Batman TV show because there was always a little bit of that, bigger than life type of things as well that those guys created. So really, I mean, obviously we know that I think the imaginative and the imagination stuff, the creative stuff, really the TV show lends a lot to him as well, not just with the creators of the characters, but the way they kind of took it and portrayed them in a certain type of way. But veering off Batman a little bit, you just mentioned something that I was not aware of. You said the original Green Lantern. So Bill was responsible for Alan Scott, Green Lantern?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. See that part
that blew you away, didn't
it? Yeah, that part I'm learning right now too. So not just way outside of Batman, he's got some other iconic DC characters as well.
Yeah,
so
and
that's
he also
awesome.
is the co-creator of Wildcat.
Oh wow, okay.
All Justice Society members. Wow.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Well, he did a lot of the team up books, the World Finest series. He worked on that a lot. So he was really involved with a lot of them. He also wrote the first Kryptonite story for Superman. He didn't come up with Kryptonite because that came out on the radio show, the Superman radio show. But he wrote the first script that incorporated the Kryptonite into the storyline in the comics. So he did a lot of these important things along the way with each of these characters to really bring them to what they are and love now. I mean, even with Alan Scott, he's making a comeback now.
Yeah.
After 80 years. I mean, and they used Wildcat, a version of Wildcat on Stargirl.
Stargirl, second season.
Yes,
so, I mean,
and Arrow.
Some of his original characters, which is really cool to see. And then it also, even Polka Dot Man for Suicide Squad, that's Bill's character. So they're really coming out and pulling out a lot of his creations and using them now and really getting into that imagination that he utilized to create these. I mean, people love it.
Polka Dot Man
was one of my favorite characters in the movie. So
I just bought his figure, the Polka Dot Man. So, and it's one of my favorite of that series. So I didn't know that part. So that's cool.
Well, I had actually
educated.
being invited to the premiere because I knew that Batman wasn't going to appear in it or any part of Gotham or anything. And then I was like, oh, okay. It's so fun. I had to do research because I don't know. There's just so much out there that you don't know because it's all starting to come out now and becoming more public. Unless you're like a diehard historian and you know everything, which I know some of those people. And they're awesome because they help me because I'm not so savvy with all of this.
Right.
Right.
I just find it amazing that this all started with a sketch. I don't think Batman would be Batman today, with blonde hair and a red leotard.
I think
No,
it would have made it very, it
Your
would have been maybe
grandfather-
2 issues at the most, and that'd have been over.
Flash Gordon.
You know?
looking.
Yeah, and your grandfather went and changed this, and directly told Bob King, no, this is who Batman is, and drew it himself. Am I correct?
he didn't draw it himself, but he did explain to Bob. And again, using words and being very visual about words. If you're going to call a character Batman, well, he can't be bright red. That's not bright red.
Right.
I mean, there's some red tint to their fur, but it's more of a brownish orange color. But
Right.
I mean, really, they're dark, they're black, they're brown, they're
So it basically it was
The
more into his
shadows.
vision of what Batman should have been, what Batman should look like.
yes. And he
Right.
felt that he needed to be mysterious and intimidating and bring some fear to the people that he was fighting, and again, that intimidation, because he's just a guy. I mean, he doesn't have any superpowers. He doesn't have a mutation that allows him to do any cool stuff. He's just a guy fighting with his fists,
And that's the
maybe
best
some other
part of the
cool little
superhero
gadgets.
right there.
You know?
The human aspect of Batman is what resonates with everyone. That
Yeah.
anyone can be Batman. Give
Put
them
their
a-
mind to it.
He's
Yeah.
everyone.
Yes, he does.
Figured it out. He uses his superpower brain.
Yeah.
Right?
But I
'Cause
mean,
he's
getting back to
protected
the
and
point where I was
everything
saying
else.
that drawing and his changes to that drawing is what sparked everything that we know today about, comics, Batman, and the world that he created. I mean, that changed from a red leotard to the dark colors showing what Batman should be. I mean, that was the big
Yeah.
spark that made everything happen.
And it is. And then, Bill had to hurry up and write the first story to pitch to, not Timely, but National Comics. And, it started with the sketch, yes, but it became so much more once Bill got
Correct.
his hands on it.
Mhm. Now, growing up,
He had to
Athena,
write that story in a weekend, and he did. I mean, it wasn't the greatest, but it was enough to sell it, and almost
it-
a few years later.
it was enough to birth the legend that we're still talking about now, 80-something years later
Exactly.
on. I mean, without that, like I said before, we would have had, Batman would have been a 2-issue run probably, if he had kept it
Yeah.
without Bill's input. I mean,
I agree.
you know what I mean? Now, Athena, growing up, knowing what you knew, did that endear you to the Batman comics or the Batman mythology, or was it maybe too hard for you as a kid to know that, to even involve yourself with this character? You know what I mean? Because of everything that was going on.
When I was younger, I mean, I didn't really read comics, but I mean, I watched the TV series on reruns.
Mhm.
I really liked the animation, the animated series. I'm very much into my art, especially when I was younger. So it was very much about the visual. I mean, I'd look at comic books, but I didn't read them. I was looking at the art. I was looking at the drawings. I was being very technical about it and dissecting it with my little brain. And
Right.
and I wasn't a writer, so I wasn't really looking at the storyline. I know I'm being bad. I should read the story, but you should see me when I go to a museum. I'm like inspecting the brush strokes and like, how did they do that?
Right. I love it though. That's great. That's what you're interested in. That's awesome.
But I really liked that medium. And then when the live action movies came out, other than the 60s series, and having Tim Burton do the first 2 movies, and I'm such a huge fan of his work, I was like blown away by all of that. So I mean, I gravitate towards the more visual part.
Understood.
So
Okay.
I didn't really grow up in the culture because I wasn't like embedded in the stories and sharing it in that way.
Interesting.
And then, as I got older, I kind of just stopped talking about it because it was painful.
Right.
And I didn't have the proof that I have now, or even a few years ago before everything was resolved, because I didn't have the internet then.
Right.
And I didn't have a book. I have a documentary.
Yeah.
I didn't know that other people knew. Like, I thought I was kind of alone with like a
Yeah.
handful of people knowing what Bill did, not knowing that there was this whole other like culture and world out there. It was like, yeah, we know who Bill is. And I'm like, I
Yeah,
learned
over the years, you hear the whisper of Bill Finger.
right.
As a
And I mean, it
collector,
was
you do
really
hear
Mark
that.
brought
Oh,
me
yeah.
into that and was like, listen, people know who your grandfather is. So by the time that happened, I was already an adult. So I was like, oh, okay. Maybe it is time to start talking about this again. So it kind of went full circle, because when you're little, you're like, yeah, this is so cool. It's Batman, even though I didn't read the stories, but I knew the importance of the character and how much people loved it, especially after the movie and all of that. And then to come back and start celebrating it after avoiding it for so long was really nice, and to really be accepted in the culture and learn a lot about my grandfather, because I never met him. So I didn't get to have personal interactions with him. So during this whole process of getting it resolved, I got to meet people who worked with him. I got to meet his best friend and like be involved in the projects of doing documentaries and just documenting me coming into the whole story, because people didn't know I existed, which was a weird concept to me, that people didn't know I existed, because DC always knew about me. So it was like, they knew I existed.
Right, exactly.
Hi, I exist,
Well, Mark had to be like a really just a bright shining light in this world of darkness that you've been living in forever, knowing.
He was, and I'm glad that he pushed me. Obviously, we got it resolved, but it was tough. There was a lot of emotional stuff attached to that. Like I said, my dad passed away when I was young, and I didn't really I wasn't involved with the whole closure of that. I'm trying not to cry now because it always makes me cry.
Sorry.
Don't cry. Don't cry.
Stuff, stuff that didn't get resolved. So I kind of had to face all of that stuff and be like, all right, well, come on, put your big girl pants on. Let's do it. It's now or never. So,
Yeah.
I'm glad that I decided to pursue it, because I could have gone the other way. I could have said, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And it had to be such a great moment for you to, I would imagine, when you went to the premiere of Batman versus Superman, and you got to see his name up there. I remember it myself, specifically seeing that and seeing Bill Finger's name up there, when I'd been accustomed to seeing just Bob Kane's, and I was like, whoa, that's fantastic.
It was amazing. So the premieres are kind of strange.
Right.
So the premiere for that one, everybody was super quiet. Where usually you go to the premieres and like people clap for their production company, their sound company, their whatever part that they have in their opening credits. People like hoot and holler, yay, or there's clapping or something, right? This was dead silent. And Bill's name came up and I started clapping and I was like, oh. Okay.
Well, at least you cheered. That's all
Right.
that mattered.
Exactly, right. And they were cheering too. I'm sure your father and grandfather, I don't want to make you emotional, but they have got to look at you as such the hero.
Yes.
I mean,
again,
you know what I mean? They were looking down.
And it's resolved for the family, but it was when I came into this in 2014, I was like, oh, there's a real population here that really is starved for this connection and for this justice to be corrected, and please, like, let's go and let's move forward. And with the fans accepting me into the culture and then backing me up, just really elevated the whole situation for me to get it resolved. Like, and I saw that the fans needed it. I needed it, obviously, for the family. But I mean, and again, not being part of the culture growing up or even into my adulthood, I was naive as to
Yeah.
what the fans knew and didn't know and wanted and didn't want and things like that. So, you know, I'm always so thankful
Mm.
for the fans, because without the fans, we wouldn't be here.
That's true.
Correct.
That
Talking
is
to
so
each
true.
other and
I
meeting
just,
awesome people. I've met amazing
Yeah.
people on this journey that
Yep.
I would have never met without Batman or the comic culture.
Yeah.
So thank you for being a fan.
Oh, of course. Like I said, I know for a fact, I can only speak for myself, but I would imagine I know what a big Batman fans these guys are as well.
oh,
And he
huge.
specifically was the gateway for me into this world. So real quick, guys, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. Okay, guys, just take one moment.
Hi, this is Will Friedle, the voice of Terry McGinnis on Batman Beyond, and I want to welcome everyone to the Comic Collectors Guild. And whether you're a comic lover, collector, or fan, you can visit them at comiccollectorsguild.com. Remember to always keep hunting.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. Izzy, I know you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I know we're going through this interview, with Athena, which was great that she's here with us. But I just want, new people who are collecting, who are getting into comics to know and realize that it's Bob Kane for many years who have taken credit for creating Batman by himself, which was not true. So this is the whole story of why we're doing this interview. I believe, if I am correct, before Bob Kane passed away, he did an audio, I believe, a bibliography or an autobiography.
Yes, an
autobiography, which he recorded, saying that Athena's grandfather, Bill Finger, was 50 to 75% responsible for creating Batman. I mean, personally, I think that's more 85% in my book. But everyone should know why this is very important, why Bill Finger, the Finger family, is very important in the comic world. There was a big injustice done to this family and to Bill Finger because he did not get the credit all these years since Batman was created. I just wanted to have that out there so everyone knows what's the base and point of why we have, Athena here and why we're talking about Batman. Lee?
Of course. No, okay, thank you. And to piggyback off of that, I did watch the documentary, Athena, and it did state, it seemed like they still had some type of relationship in the later years as this was going on, it seemed like, or did Bob and Bill not speak at all for years and years and years?
I think once they got back into the 60s, they didn't really talk to each other after the show came out, because that's when Bob sold out basically of Batman and made all of his money and made his final deal with the character. And Bill had an opportunity to write a 2-part episode. So that was about it. So once he saw what was going on with that, and then with Jerry Bales knowing that Bob Kane couldn't do all of this by himself for so long, or even in the beginning,
Right.
found Bill and kind of pushed him to come to the public about his story and his contributions to the Batman and to the industry. And that led to Bill being part of the first official industry comic convention in New York in the 60s, where he was part of a panel that had people who were in the industry, first time ever doing this type of thing, talking about how he wrote for Batman and came up with large portions of what we know as the mythos and things like that.
And and I guess
Bob
that
did not like that. Bob didn't like the article that was written. He didn't like the fact that that Bill, my grandfather, was speaking publicly about his contributions. So Bob then took the opportunity, instead of, being friendly, outed Bill as a liar and said that I did all this stuff by myself, and how dare he, and upheld his lie that he'd been holding on to for so long already at that point. So
until before his death.
when he did do the admission of Bill's contributions, that was actually Thomas Andrea, who was the ghostwriter of his book, was like, this version of your story can't be published because this isn't true. This is fiction. So he's the one that really got Bob to admit more about what Bill's role was in the beginning. So without Thomas Andrea, then we wouldn't have, the words coming out of the man's mouth himself.
which was very helpful for you guys, right? That became a
Yeah.
very piece of important tape, I guess. And I wonder if that was just his conscience at that point, or maybe, no, it sounds like Thomas actually made him do it.
No,
But-
it was Thomas. I've spoken with Thomas. I've done panels with Thomas. He's like, yeah, no. I told him this is not going to fly. You need to, admit some truths, and got him to, tell the story a little more accurate to what
goodness.
really happened.
Yeah. But like I said, 85%. That's what I think. So I
mean,
actually have an
you
off
stated
the wall
true.
question. Yeah. I
No.
have an off the wall question, and I sorry, Lee, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's
It's
okay.
been bugging me this entire interview. And
Okay.
I need to know. I need to know. Okay. Besides Batman, who is your favorite character?
Well, I never
Anything
admitted that
comic.
Batman was my favorite.
So
Who would
there's
that
no
be?
secondary.
Right? In the Batman mythos, though, my favorite character is Catwoman. But in comics in general, I really like the Wolverine character.
Oh, what?
Ah,
Marvel.
I know,
Blasphemous,
blasphemous right now.
yeah. But I was curious. I was really
Really
curious.
old school. My favorite is actually Felix the Cat.
Oh, well, there you go. All
There
right.
we go.
All great choices. All great choices, my friend.
All great choices.
Now, I want to go back to the Green Lantern, and I hope this is okay for me to ask. Does he get credit for Alan Scott now, or is that a whole another ball of wax that we don't leave?
He's always gotten credit for Alan Scott.
Okay, he has. Okay, great. Gotcha.
As well as Polka Dot Man.
Yeah. I mean, he has been credited for that one. And then Wildcat, he also has the co-credit with Irwin. So, I mean, there are a few that he is already receiving credit for.
Right.
It's just, there's so many different versions of Green Lantern.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So many different characters have become the Green Lantern and the Red Lantern and the whole universe of the Lanterns now, that Alan Scott's just a little part of it, and not
Right.
many people even knew who Alan Scott was. So now that he's coming out again into the Lantern universe, people are going to get to learn more about the origins of where the character came from, just
Right.
in comics in general.
Even Batman's been a lantern, so we got that.
Well, look at that. That wouldn't even been able to happen if he hadn't been a Lantern and then Batman, and that's Bat Lantern
Right,
wouldn't
and
even be around. So,
Twofer.
Yeah.
Right there, cross it
That's-
over.
Now, you had also in the documentary, your father had started to try to get Bill Finger's name recognized as early as it's 1989, the Batman Tim Burton movie, correct?
Yeah.
Now, I from there I started digging in some old comics of mine, just to see, and I pulled out a 1989 comic, Bat Detective Comics, and there, of course, right on the front, created by Bob Kane, right there,
Yeah.
solely by himself. Fast forward to today, and I get an issue of a current series, Legends of Batman, and I can see, if I should have bookmarked it, I'm sorry.
It's okay, they hide it now.
It's there somewhere, but it does say created by
Yes.
Bob Kane with Bill Finger, and that just I started looking at all my comics prior to I mean after 2015, I believe it was when, and it's all there. Look, there it is.
You
Created
found
by
it?
Bob Kane with Bill Finger right there on the bottom. And I started going through all my comics and it's all there. And it's just like so cool to have a version that didn't have his name and have versions that do. And then now that's on movies now. And
Yep.
I
Everything.
am I are we
The
safe?
Batman name has to have Bob Kane with Bill Finger.
Yeah, are we safe to say that that is going to be forever now?
Yes, there's no taking the byline away from him.
I mean,
Good.
in
That's
anything,
forever
movies, comics.
solidified.
Wow, that's just amazing. And I'm happy to be alive at this during this time because
Yeah, definitely.
that's awesome.
I just wish my dad was here. He would have really enjoyed seeing the people celebrate and come together for Bill and see how we were able to get him the credit that he deserved and all of that. So wherever his energy is, I know that he's feeling the love from everyone and seeing that the resolution has happened for the family. So
That's
I
great.
again, I really love the fact that the history has been corrected for not just comic people, but for pop culture in general, since Batman is such a big part of pop culture worldwide. And now people really do get to know the true backstory of this character and see how that, you can change your situation. It might take a little while, but you can get recognized and get noticed for your special talent and make sure that your name is forever attached to whatever it is that's special. So I again I get a little emotional.
Oh,
It's
That's
just
okay.
that, it's a big thing. And
It
it
is.
took a while for me to come to terms with how massive the history needed to be changed and was changed. And now we get to just say the true thing instead of a lie. It's awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
such an amazing story. I mean, when Iz told me he got a hold of you through our mutual friend Karen, Karen Whitfield, the Bronze Age Batgirl, Iz was excited, like, no, we need to interview her, and we've got this down now. So thank you, Izzy. We appreciate that.
Yes, I felt like a little kid at Christmas, believe it or not. I really did. I really did.
Back to that age.
So Athena, now you're also touring Comic Cons, is that right? Are you putting out?
Yeah, I do. I've done a lot of the local ones here in the Orlando area. But I am going to be in Myrtle Beach in November. I will be in Grand Rapids in November. I will be doing some more local stuff here in the Orlando area, and hopefully more.
Good.
Well, I think you'll be booked for many.
COVID situation, it's been a little tricky, but I'm venturing out a little more and taking my chances with the masses.
Yes.
But I'm glad I went to
Do
MegaCon
it.
where I got to meet Karen. It was wonderful and get to make some other connections and see my con family because you haven't seen them in so long.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get more. I will post. I do have social media. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, so you can always see when I'm posting about my schedule. I need to update it a little bit now that I have some more events coming up. So yeah, I love it. I go, I talk to the fans, I do panels, I sell my art.
I think you'll be booked for many moons to come.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
people
Oh,
love
yeah.
this story, and forever. Lots of people already knew it, and are just so ecstatic that the truth is out there, as you just stated. So I think people want to be able to talk to you and get the real scoop and get the real skinny on everything about how.
I get to meet more awesome fans. I love meeting people. So You know, and the fans are so awesome. They really are.
So LT, didn't we have a plan for Athena?
I believe we wanted to ask and bestow
Yes.
upon you a honorary celebrity guild membership into our little club, if you would be so humble to join us.
Oh wow, I would be so honored.
Yes.
Oh,
Great.
thank you. What do I have to do?
Well, you just passed the initiation. It was just being
Yeah,
able to
you
talk
know,
to
I
us
think
for at
you
least 40 minutes. So you
surpassed
did, yeah,
that.
you did. You seem to be able to deal with us for about 40 minutes or so. So you
Oh,
know
you
what?
guys are awesome. What? I'll beat him up.
What we are going to do, and LT and all of us, we are going to dedicate one page on our website to you and your family. With that, we're going to put down all your links, social media, your website.
Oh,
So anyone that goes to our website, they're going to, see you. And like we did for Karen Whitfield, we want to do the same thing to you. As long as you say, okay, we're fine. So
that's amazing. Thank you so much. I would love that.
good. So
Oh, yeah. No, and in fact, we look, hopefully we'll be able to do future interviews with you, because this will probably be a never-ending topic.
This is a never ending. I mean, you can see all the Batman, stuff. It's a never ending topic.
I'm all about action figures, Batman action figures. So
oh, I've got tons of stuff myself, so I could probably put some stuff together and make a little display.
nice.
There we go.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome.
And there is two things I want to touch on before we call this quits. One,
Sure.
like you said before, you do art.
Yeah.
Okay, I want everyone to know if you're watching this interview, go to her website. And what's your website, Athena?
Just my name, athenafinger.com.
Go to athenafinger.com. Check out, whatever she does, all her art. I've seen it. I think I'm going to get a commission done for myself. So you should get one done. And the last thing, me, having multiple children, we're not going to count how many. So I want to know about your son. This
What
is the
about my
last thing.
son?
I want to know how he felt, how he feels, knowing that, his great grandfather helped create all this.
Well, he had an interesting ride with this whole thing. He's 19 now, and he's in a band. He's a musician. He sings. He plays guitar. He plays drums. You give him an instrument, he'll play it. He's one of those. He can't draw. So, I can't play musical instruments anymore. I used to play piano, but don't ask me to play now because I don't remember.
I'll scratch that next question then, because that was the next question. Well, just okay, never mind. Take a piano.
He was in elementary school going into middle school when this whole thing was kind of exploding. So he was kind of at the right age for it, but he kind of had a similar kind of social part of it in school as far as like people not really believing him.
Right.
And I mean, he's little. I mean, you're little. You're like in first grade. You're not using the internet all that much to Google Bill Finger.
Right.
So like he had that experience that I had in elementary school where, yeah, right, your grandfather didn't do that. So it was, yeah, right, your great grandfather didn't do that. It's like everyone says that they're related to Thomas Edison or George Washington. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
But then when the book came out, he had something physical other than something on the computer to show people on the bus or in the classroom. Look, this is what I'm talking about. That's my mother. Like even my dog is mentioned in here. Like this is my great grandfather, And then once we started going to conventions, he was 11 at the time, so it was like prime age for him to like really come into this world because that's kind of the age group that kind of come into this comic world. And so he, knowing who he was related to, kind of gave him this like, oh yeah, I get to do all this cool stuff and like now I'm kind of royalty, and I get to meet all these really
Yes.
awesome people and go to all these really cool places. And like, he ate it up, which is great
Oh,
because
that's good.
a lot of cool people. He's very
Yeah.
humble. Again, he's very humble. So he's not like, oh, look at me. He's like, oh, this is such an experience. And he
He
really
soaked it in.
enjoyed the
Yeah.
experience of going to the first convention with me and going to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time and doing these firsts with me as a family united to tell our family story. And so then the documentary, and he participated in that. And then when it came out, I was like, he was in middle school, and I'm like, so did you show your friends the documentary? And he's like, well, I don't really talk about it. And, like, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, he was a kid.
And then I was like, well, maybe you want to show him, maybe you want to tell him, And so he's really quiet about it. It's not like he tells everyone, oh, this is what he's very selective about it. So
Right.
he loves the fact that he gets to have this really cool connection to this culture. But he doesn't want it to be who he is. He wants to be a musician.
Right, right.
Of course.
Well, the cool thing
Yeah.
is that the artistic talent, I mean, no matter what it is, runs through all of you guys.
Part of it.
Right,
So,
right.
And I got to see him go through the full story and have that happy end at the end. So I'm glad that he didn't have to carry the burden that I had to carry growing up, knowing that I had this task that needed to be done, but I'd be passing on something that would be a missed opportunity if I didn't do it.
Right, exactly.
To make a claim on something. So I wouldn't be passing on a fight to the claim. I'd be passing on this doubt, we could have done it.
Right.
So I'm glad that we had a positive moving forward, so that he doesn't have to have this kind of nudging in the back of his mind. Not that it's loud, but
Of course, that makes sense. Now, quick question for you. You mentioned, of course, now for the audience out there who wants to go back and see the episode of the television show that the creator of Batman himself wrote. What do you recall the episode of the specific episode that your grandfather wrote for the television show?
The Clock King.
The Clock King episode?
Batman 66.
Yeah, for Batman
He
66.
got credit with his friend Charles. He co-wrote that with his friend Charles. And he asked Charles if he could have top billing on that one, and Charles said, of course. So
That's so great.
Good.
It's not Bill, they have it as William, although he never went
William.
as William. But yeah, that was the first on screen that he got to see. Now, Bill also wrote movies. He wrote 2 sci-fi movies that were actually filmed. I think there's a third script out there that wasn't filmed. Don't quote me on that. But his more famous one is The Green Slime.
Okay.
He wrote that one. It's kind of a cult classic from the 60s, campy sci-fi. Yeah. So, I mean, he wrote for everyone. He wrote for the radio, TV, comics.
It's so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did so much. Well, I know for me, I will definitely be looking for the episode on Batman 66. So I would love to see that one that he wrote.
It's
the creator of Batman.
So you're gonna see both parts.
I will definitely save that time, save that channel. I'll be right there. I will make sure I watch both of them, my friend, for sure. Well, I guess I don't want to cut this short by any means, but I think we've said it all. And Athena, I know it's Labor Day weekend, so I know you've probably got some things you need to do as well. So I just want to say it has been the utmost pleasure for me and for us to be
Definitely.
able to sit down and speak with you. Thank you so much for giving us part of your day. It means a lot. Your grandfather means a lot to all of us. I think I speak for the world when I say that he does. I mean, I really do. That, because Batman influences, even if you're not a huge Batman fan, as we touched upon, Batman has some point influenced you or used some bat phrase or something from that. You know what I mean? So it just means so much that you took some time to speak with us today. And I really enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Well,
thank you.
so much. It's been so much fun.
I appreciate your grandfather, and I have been a fan since I want to say 1976. I was Robin for Halloween, and I was Batman in say 2003 for Halloween. So it came full circle there, and I'm glad, his story came full circle as well. So I appreciate that, and this has been a tremendous honor to talk to such royalty.
Exactly.
Yes.
We
yes.
said so much about Batman, but he also created the best Robin. He created the best Robin out there. He's never been surpassed. There's been many Robins that have tried to come out, but he's
Dick Grayson.
the best one is
Definitely.
what the Bill Finger created. So I gotta say that too.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Athena. And I hope we get you on the show more often. Do more interviews or do
Sure.
something else totally different. That would be great.
Yep. For
We can
sure.
review bad movies if you want.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, hey, right now. That's a good
That's
show.
something we'll do. Exactly. And guys, please check out athenafinger.com. Check out her website. As she said, she'll be at the Comic Cons in Myrtle Beach. And you said Michigan as well, or am I wrong about that?
Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids, yes. So guys, keep an eye out on her on the schedule for that, so you can go and meet her. This fantastic lady who's done so much for us. So again, we really appreciate it. Guys, don't forget to check out our website as well, comiccollectorsguild.com. Follow us on YouTube or wherever you like to listen to your favorite podcasts, where you'll be able to check us out. Guys, I think we've said it all. Athena, thank you so much again. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.